Hi everyone, I'm Judy Elliott, and coming up today on Lifestyles for Women, I can't even begin to tell you what we're going to be hearing about today. It's fun, exciting, and spooky, particularly for the month of October. We'll be right back with you in just a moment. Well, hi everyone, I'm Judy Elliott and welcome to Lifestyles for Women. We have a great show planned for you. My guest today is Connie Hall Scott, and Connie is a writer, a publicist, and thank you so much, Connie, for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
It's really exciting to talk with you because we're going to be covering a lot of things, specifically that is kind of really geared into Dalton, but not only that, but let's talk a little bit about yourself.
Okay.
I know that your family is very well grained here in our area in Dalton, and kind of give me a background because you have a very interesting life and family.
Oh, thank you. Well, I have, I'll start toward the end, I guess. I have 3 teenagers who attend Northwest High School that I'm very proud of. My parents are Troy and Juanita Hall. I think a lot of people might know them from Silverleaf Tufters, WTTI, and probably the renovation of the Wink Theater.
Right.
And I have 4 sisters.
And your family, you grew up here in Dalton. Were you born here in Dalton?
I was.
Okay. And I know that with all that, the renovation of the Wink Theater has been, I mean, it was really marvelous to see how your family renovated that and made it such a beautiful, beautiful facility.
It was a lot of fun, and I'm really proud of my dad for starting that process and finishing it.
Right. Do you have any information about the Wink Theater when it was built, or?
Yeah. Yes, the Wink Theater was built in 1939, or construction began in 39 by J.C.H. Wink. Construction was completed in 1941. Unfortunately, J.C.H. Wink had passed away before the theater opened. His idea was that it would be a small-town version of Atlanta's Fox Theater, a place for people to come and have a nice time. And at that time, World War II was going on, so it was a nice diversion.
Right. And then your dad had it and redid that. And tell me, before that, though, it was a Wink Theater. I know that's also mentioned in the book that we're going to be talking about today. But was the Wink Theater in progress? Was it being used when he purchased it, or was it?
No, it actually was closed in 1981 with the final showing of Disney's The Black Hole. And then it sat empty mostly for, I think, close to 20 years. And it was just in a really bad state of disrepair. The city owned it at that time, and they were considering, demolishing it and making a parking garage just because it was a big mess.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And then, the Wink was owned when it was a theater by the Hearst family. Is that right?
The Hearst family, Leon Hearst and his family came to Dalton in 1971. Because Leon managed 4 theaters. We had 4 theaters in Dalton at that time. We had 2 indoor theaters, and we had 2 drive-ins. And so he managed all 4 theaters for Carmike, and he had he was very active in the community, as well was his son Dale, who I know that you know.
Right, right.
And yeah, Dale also worked at that theater, and then Carmike before he moved on to Carmike Corporate.
Right. And I want to talk a little bit about what, kind of where you are with things and what has led you to where you are now. But let's talk a little bit about you and how you came into where you are now with writing. Well, you're doing so many different things. You just can't say you do one thing. You really do a lot of different items. And kind of tell a little bit about yourself. What do you do?
Okay. Well,
writer, of course.
Yeah, that's kind of my passion. I was a stay-at-home mom mostly. I have always written, but I've written or been published since 1997. I've done a lot of work with the Daily Citizen News, some other newspapers and magazines, both local and national. I do some promotion work. I work with artists and some bands and clubs and businesses, that sort of thing from time to time. And the book Haunted Dalton, Georgia, kind of came into play through Dalton Ghost Tours, something that I started 11 years ago. And it really sprang from the Wink, my involvement with the Wink, because, I was the artistic director there for a while. And people start, especially Dale Hurst.
Yeah, don't give it away yet.
Oh, okay, I'll save that.
I want to tell those stories in the
Okay, I'll
next
save
segment.
that.
But you that kind of inspired you to do
Yeah,
the book.
yes.
All the things that came out of being associated with the Wink and
Yeah,
all the
this
different
particular book, it definitely did.
Yeah, right. Well, I want to talk about the tours in just a minute. We're going to go to a break, but I want to talk a little bit about the tours that people can go on with the ghost tours, because October, any time of the month is great to go on, but particularly October.
Oh, yes. It's fun.
Yeah, just kind of give me, I don't want to spoil it for everyone yet, but just, are they going on now? Or when do they start?
It's going to be every Friday and Saturday from now till the end of October. And then we'll probably have a few in November, not likely December, simply because it's way too cold. But I have special events throughout the year and private tours for Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, or whoever calls up and says, hey, we have this group and we'd love to do a private tour. So we do that too.
Right.
And I have special guests come in from time to make it a little bit more interesting.
Wow, I can't wait to hear more about the ghost tours of Dalton and know a little bit about that. But we're going to take a break here. And when we come back, we don't want you to go away, because we're going to be talking about the Haunted Dalton, Georgia book that Connie has just now completed, and also where to find it, as well as we're going to give you some ideas about how to have those go on those ghost tours. Hey, that would be a fun family thing, I think.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Well, you can't probably, I don't know. Would you want? You don't want.
It's not terribly scary. It's a little spooky, but it's not.
Is it at night when you go?
Yeah, it starts at 8 o'clock. The public tours do.
Okay. So, can you bring your flashlight if you go?
You sure can. I always encourage people to bring their cameras.
Yeah.
Because some people have gotten really interesting photographs along the route.
I bet. All right. Well, we can't wait to hear the rest. So stay with us, and you stay with us here on Lifestyles for Women as we continue with Haunted Dalton, Georgia. We'll be right back in just a moment. Thanks and welcome back again to Lifestyles for Women. As we continue today, we are going to be now talking about a tour that you can take in October and November, Haunted Dalton tours with Connie Scott Hall. And Connie, I tell you, I'm excited. We started to talk about that right before the break. In case someone has missed that or just now catching up on the show. That is, tell me about the Haunted, it's a ghost tour.
Dalton Ghost Tours? Yes. Yes. Dalton Ghost Tours began 11 years ago after I was the artistic director at the Wink Theater at the time, and I would take groups through the building and talk about things like this is the last remaining, or one of the last remaining examples of modern architecture in the South, et cetera, about the Wink. But I started throwing in some of the stories that Dale Hurst and other people had told me about the Wink, their ghost stories, their personal accounts. And I noticed that people seemed a little bit more interested in that overall than some of the other. Well, it just spiced it up a little bit.
Yeah. More on a more exciting, as you said.
Yeah.
The historical part is great. But
it sure is.
But people just love to hear those. I guess those.
Especially the younger people. I notice, their mind will wonder when you start talking about things like architecture and how many seats are in the house and that sort of thing. But as I began telling those stories, other people would approach me after the tours and say, or share with me stories about their own experiences away from the Wink, like at Dalton Little Theater and some of the other places that we talk about on the tour. Eventually, I learned that there was enough stories to do a tour. I talked with, at that time, Marcel White at the Historic Foundation and gathered more stories because I love to research. It's a lot of fun. And I just put together a tour. So that's how it was born.
Right. How long does the tour last?
A typical tour is about 90 minutes. We start out on the wooden deck directly across the street from the Wink on West Crawford Street, and we stay there for about 30 minutes. You know, we talk a little bit there, and then we start the walking portion of the tour, which is a little over a block, and we end back up at the wooden deck.
So you start around 8 o'clock and you're finished around 9 o'clock?
Oh, we're
Or
finished
somewhere?
around 9:30.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
that's a good tour. So wear comfortable walking shoes for sure.
Yes, I would recommend that.
Right. Now, for people who want to register for the tours, what number should they call?
They should call 706-673-2167, although reservations aren't required. If anyone has more or has questions or comments, they can call that number. Or you can also find me, Connie Hall Scott, on Facebook, or Dalton Ghost Tours on Facebook.
So is the entire tour a walking tour?
Most of it, after the first 30 minutes, we just it's more or less a meet and greet, and, you know, we talk about why Dalton has so many, or possibly has so many stories, and we talk about the Wink, and then we start the walking portion and we hit, you know, the other locations.
Yeah, right. So no cars required.
No.
I mean, you just get there and then you start the walk. And interesting, very, very interesting. And I have to ask you, has anyone had any type of experiences since they've been walking?
You know, from time to time, I get people who say that they have, and often, like I said earlier, I always encourage people to bring their digital cameras because you can get interesting shots. And sometimes on the tour, someone will come up and say, you know, hey, look at this picture I just got. What do you think this is? And, you know, we'll talk about it and kind of pass it around. And
well, I'm interesting. I heard you speak the other day at Rotary, and I thought it was interesting the way you talked about, and I'm not going to give it all away, I'm going to save it for the last segment, but there's one area which is the downtown hotel?
the Landmark Building?
Yes.
Yes.
Where a light comes on?
Oh, yes,
That's
very often.
Quite intriguing.
You know, it really is. The Landmark Building used to be Hotel Dalton, or the second version of Hotel Dalton. And that story kind of unfolded for me from when the tour started 11 years ago until, well, things are still happening. Very often I'll have a group in front of the building and we'll be talking about the building, and a light will come on, and this is at nighttime after everyone inside's already gone, very often on the 5th, 2nd, or 3rd floor while people are watching. So, you know.
And that's not planned. That's
No.
just, and I think you checked also with the owner to see if there were any like lights that timed on timer, but there's
or anyone working late or anything like that. Randy Bates, a local attorney, owns the Landmark Building, and he assured me that, you know, there are no automatic timers, and he said if you're ever, that typically no one is in there late, but if you're ever wondering about it, just kind of look in the parking lot and see if there are any cars there.
Very interesting.
Yeah, so far we haven't been able to find out why.
Right. You know, it would be fun to get a group together, you know, just for a good night out, maybe go to dinner and then meet and take the tour.
Yes.
Now, how do you do you pay in advance? I mean, tell me about payment.
Well, there is a ticket person who will be in front of the deck, and they sell the tickets right before the tour.
Okay.
And we usually start about 8:05 just to make sure there are no late people, because very often there are.
Right.
And, you know, no reservations required.
Okay, great. Again, you meet, well, do you need to call in advance? You don't need to call in advance.
You don't have to if you have questions or
Yeah, but if you're having a group, it'd be nice to call you and just say, hey, we've got a group of 5, 10 that's coming. Yeah. So
yeah, it's always nice to know. And sometimes when people call in, they'll share something that happened to them, and you know, they kind of want you to know their own experiences.
Right. And what are the times of the tours, the dates and the times?
The public tours are Fridays and Saturdays throughout October at 8 o'clock.
8 p.m.
And
Fridays and Saturdays.
I may be adding some special tours, and I don't have the dates for those right now, which would be in addition to those times.
Right.
But if you just want to watch Facebook, then it's always announced on there.
And what is it on Facebook? What do you go to?
Dalton Ghost Tours.
Dalton Ghost Tours. Okay, all right. Well, we're going to take a break here. When we come back, we're going to talk about this great book, Haunted Dalton, okay?
Okay.
Stay with us here. Much more to come. We'll be right back. Thanks for joining us back here on Lifestyles for Women as we continue today. We are talking about haunted Dalton, Georgia. And if you don't know, we have a book here that we're going to be talking about, who is the author of this book, Connie Hall Scott. Connie, great again to have you here.
Thank you.
Tell me about the book. Where can we find this book? And a little bit about what the book is about.
Okay, the book is, stories about the haunted spots in Dalton. You can get it at Amazon.com, Walnut Square Mall. Where
Regional
else?
Library?
Yeah, you can get it at the library,
Yeah.
or online.
Yes, okay, all right. So many different ways to get it. So if you go into, let's just say Amazon, okay?
Yes.
Let's say Amazon.com, and then do you type in?
You would type in Haunted Dalton, Georgia, or Connie Hall Scott, and it'll come up that way.
Okay.
You can also get it at the History Press site. That's the publisher. But I know that Walnut Square Mall always keeps, in Dalton, always keeps a copy at their bookstore, Books A Million.
Right.
And I believe they carry it at the CVB in Dalton, and just
Good.
some other places.
Right. Now, I have a question. I haven't asked you this before, but if someone comes on the tour, is it possible that you would have some of these books that you could sign
Yes,
for them?
Absolutely.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
So you get an extra little bonus here. How much is the book?
It is $20.
Okay, great. So you can get that book signed. Wouldn't that be a great gift to give someone, that's moved away, to have something here from Dalton?
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. It came out last September in 2013, and a lot of people ordered it for Christmas.
That's what I was just thinking.
Yeah.
What a cool idea. Yeah, I love that. So tell me a little bit about, this obviously has some of the stories in it that you've been told through people who say this is an experience that happened.
Yeah.
Give me an example of something in there.
Oh, let's see. Well, we could talk about the Landmark Building. We kind of went into that a moment ago.
Right.
The Landmark Building is, of course, the 5-story building downtown that used to be Hotel Dalton. Let's see. When I first started doing the tours, I asked Randy Bates, the owner, if he had any stories. And he said, basically, it had a great history. The original Hotel Dalton burned down in 1911, but that they did not have ghosts or any ghost stories. So I kind of just put that one aside and, decided not to share much about it on the tour. About 1 or 2 years in, 2 ladies were taking the tour. We were passing the Landmark Building. And one of them said, "Can you tell us about the Landmark Building?" So I started giving some facts about it, and they said, "No, we want to know about the ghosts." And I said, "Well, there are no ghosts there." And they told me that there were ghosts there for sure because they worked there. They had an office there, and that sometimes they would hear weeping and experience kind of like a heavy sadness there, and they were just convinced that it was haunted. Still, that wasn't enough to say, okay, you definitely, you can never say you definitely have a ghost, but it wasn't enough really to add to the tours until sometime later. My mom and dad, Troy and Juanita Hall, took the tour, and when it was over and we were walking to our cars, my dad said, "Did I ever tell you about the case I worked at the Landmark Building when it was Hotel Dalton when I was a police officer?" And he had not, so he shared information about a young lady who took her life there. She was probably, as he remembered it, around 18 or 19. She had been a car hop at Cherokee Drive-In. And she checked into the hotel after a failed relationship and took her life there.
Really?
And he was one of the responding officers. He believed it happened around 1968 or 69.
Which kind of explains, as you said, the weeping that...
To me, it did. It was definitely enough to build a story around because it started tying together.
Yeah. And the two of them had even talked about that.
No.
The weeping,
No.
the person that...
Randy and my dad?
Yeah,
No.
about this.
Or
yeah.
no.
Interesting that happened.
No, and in fact, I shared it with Randy later. He had not heard that. And I ran into him downtown at some point, and he said, "You know what? We have stories for you now." And he gave me a card of one of his partners and said, "This gentleman has experienced things inside the building.
Right.
You need to give him a call and find out what's going on." And things just keep happening there. I like to have special guests, as I mentioned sometimes, and I had brought in a pet psychic from Atlanta who said that she'd never been to Dalton before, not even passing through. Her name is Victoria Bragg, and we were doing the walking portion of the tour, and she pointed out the building. And this is before the book came out,
Right.
so she couldn't have read about it. And she talked about, she basically told me the same story my dad had.
Yeah.
And
Interesting, interesting. All right, our time is almost up, but it's Haunted Dalton, Georgia book. You don't want to forget about that book. It's going to be great to read, get as a gift. You find it on Amazon, find it at some of the other places. Also, a telephone number to contact you.
that would be 706-673-2167.
Okay, and contact Connie also for tours. Let's just kind of review that real quick. You can find it at telephone number, well, same telephone number, or show up 8 o'clock on Friday and Saturday nights during October.
At the Wooden Deck.
At the Wooden Deck across from the Wheat Theater.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much
Thank
again for
you.
being with us.
Thank you.
And thank you for being with us here on Lifestyles for Women. Until next time, I'm Judy Elliott. We hope you've had a great day. We'll see you next time.